Should you go for Acheron's signature light cone or her Eidolons? In this video, we're just going to be comparing the two and seeing which of them brings you the best value. And if you're planning to invest on Acheron, which is the right way to do it. So yeah, let's begin. Alright, so first of all, starting off with her signature light cone along the passing shore. It's a 5-star Nihility light cone. When you equip it, first of all, it's going to give you a flat 36% crit damage increase at S1, which is already pretty good. It's going to give you a 24% damage bonus. And then it's also going to increase your ultimate damage by 24%. And for Acheron, this is like most of her damage anyways. Her ultimate is going to be a big portion of her damage, so it's pretty much a 48% damage bonus, just period. And also on top of that, this light cone is going to have super high base attack, so that's going to be very beneficial for Acheron too. So this is everything this light cone is going to give you. Obviously, it's going to be her best in slot light cone because it's her signature at the end of the day. But I'm also telling you right now, it's going to be much better than any other light cone. Like, it's actually just levels beyond the other light cones. Acheron is going to be the first Nihility character who can actually like crit and deal damage as like a normal DPS. So we just don't have any light cones that work with that. Most light cones are focused on like DOT and stuff like that. So this is the first like actual good light cone for like a normal crit Nihility character. And it's the only one pretty much. Most of the other light cones are simply not going to give you anything. Like the passives are just going to be completely disregarded, which is pretty bad. There's just no free to play options or no options in general, like period. The next best option is going to be the Goodnight Sleep Well light cone. And even at S5, it's going to be around 35% worse than her signature, which is, by the way, just crazy for like a weapon difference. That's the next best weapon, and that's at S5 too. Same with the other like 5-star light cones. They're all gonna be like 30 to 45% worse than this light cone, let alone they don't really work. They might help you like apply debuffs and stuff like that, but as a damaged light cone, they're just gonna be lacking. So yeah, in conclusion, getting her light cone is gonna be at least a 35% damage increase, and that if you have an S5 Goodnight Sleep Well. If you don't, it's probably gonna be more like 40% or somewhere around that, depending on which light cone you have, which teams and stuff like that. Those are rough calculations, but it's just, you get the point. It's just going to be much better and consistent than any other light cone. Now for each refinement, it's also going to give you around 6% crit damage, and then 4% damage bonus and 4% burst damage bonus. From S1 to S5, that's going to be around like a 25% damage increase. So that's going to be around a 6% increase for each super imposition for this light cone, which is not really as much. But yeah, in conclusion, for the light cone, when you get it, it's going to be at least a 35% damage increase and then 6% damage increase for each super imposition. And now let's move on to her Eidolons. We're going to review them, explain them very quick, see how much damage they give you, and then we're going to compare it between them and your light cone. And we're going to see which one you should pick. So we have E1. It's just going to increase your crit rate by 18% when you deal damage to debuffs enemies. I mean, it's cool. The crit rate is going to be very appreciated, especially because you're going to be getting crit damage from your like traces and stuff like that. So crit rate is going to be like the area where you lag from. So obviously it's going to increase your damage, and melee is going to make it easier to build Acheron. And I mean, this crit rate, it's always appreciated on any character who can crit. Generally speaking, it really depends on like which weapon you're using, how much crit damage you have, how much crit rate you already have, which is your ratio, stuff like that. But to simplify it, I'd say it's generally around like a 10% damage increase. It could be from like 7 to 15, but 10% is like the average damage increase you're going to see from this constellation. For Eidolon, sorry. So yeah, I'd say E1 is going to be around a 10% damage increase. Now, E2 is going to lower the number of Nihility characters you need to get the full bonus from your A4 trace. And it's also going to help you gain 1 free stack for Acheron. Now, this might not sound very interesting, but it's actually the best constellation she can have, because this trace is going to be very important for Acheron to be activated. It's going to give you much more damage, so you'd want to have this trace activated. But at E0 to E1, you're going to have to use 2 Nihilities to activate it, and that's going to restrict your teams by a lot. I did a video about her teams before, fun, check it out. But in general, you're just going to have to use 2 Nihilities and then a sustain, so there's no place for a harmony to buff you. But with this Eidolon, you're only going to need 1 Nihility, so you can use your sustain and then you're going to have 1 free slot. In this slot, you can use another harmony like Bronya, for example, or Sparkle, or any harmony pretty much, and they're going to buff you by a lot. We all know harmonies are pretty broken in this game, so that's going to result in a lot more damage. Now, obviously, the damage increase for this Eidolon is going to be coming from your harmony, so how much damage increase is just going to depend on which harmony you have. Generally speaking, I'd say it's going to be around a 25% damage increase. Again, depending on which harmony you have, how are they built, how strong they are, stuff like that. It just heavily depends. I'd say it can be from like 15 to a 30% damage increase. Average is like 25. It's hard to put like an actual number, but generally it's also very worth it for like the flexibility it gives you. So yeah, E2 is going to make her much more flexible, and also it's going to be a very good damage increase. E3 is just going to increase level of your ultimate and then your normal attacks multipliers, it's just gonna result in around like an 8% damage increase. E4 is pretty bad. It's just 8% damage bonus to your ultimate. At least when you stop at E4, it's definitely not worth it. It's gonna be like a 4% damage increase. So yeah, it's definitely not worth it. E5 is just level your skill and talent level. Skill is just the multipliers for the damage. And then talent level is just more enemies resistance. It's like a 2% enemy resistance decrease, which is definitely not significant. The whole Eidolon is gonna result in like a 3% damage increase. Now E6 is gonna increase your resistance penetration by 20% because your ultimate is gonna have all elements resistant penetration, so you can break the weakness of any enemy. It doesn't matter their elements, and that's gonna be increased by 20%. And then also when melee, it's gonna make your ultimate and basic attack damage considered as your ultimate damage. So you're gonna gain all the buffs you're getting from your ultimate, from the weapon and stuff like that. And then also they're gonna be able to break any enemy's weakness no matter the element, which is very, very broken. What this Eidolon is pretty much just like a built-in silver wolf in this character. It just allows you to ignore like any enemy's elements, which is super, super good. Assuming like you're struggling somehow to like clear the memory of chaos, for example. In that case, you can always put your strongest team, like your strongest sustains, harmonies, stuff like that on one side that you're struggling on, and then you can clear the other side with Acheron. Well, I mean, I don't think you will be struggling for every E6, but that's the idea. She's gonna be usable anywhere. So yeah, E6 is just broken. The damage increase is just not really gonna be like calculable in my opinion. It's just that she's gonna be usable anywhere. There is some damage increase to your normal and skill damage because they're gonna be considered as ultimate damage, but it still doesn't matter. The main thing for the Eidolon is that she's gonna be usable on any enemy no matter what the element is. It's like a built-in silver wolf. So yeah, it's just simply a very, very broken E6. Overkill in my opinion, because if you have her E6 with the weapon, you probably wouldn't really even care about the enemy's elements. You're just gonna, you know, kill them with damage. But hey, it's there. So if you want to go for E6, it's definitely one of the best E6s we've seen in Honkai yet. Alright, so now for the final conclusion, how should you wish for her? Should you get the weapon, Eidolons, which one first, and stuff like that. Before we continue with that though, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 7K, so if you subscribe, that's gonna be very appreciated. Did you do it? Thank you. So from the numbers we've got before, it's gonna be pretty simple. First thing you'd want to get is definitely gonna be her light cone. 35% damage increase is gonna be better than all of her Eidolons, so you definitely want to make sure you get that first. There are no other options. It's gonna be very limited. If you're not getting her light cone, it's gonna be pretty tough. I say even if you're free to play, try to get her light cone if you want to get her, because it's gonna be a huge difference. After that, you'd want to get E1, you know, just a 10% damage increase, obviously. After that, you'd want to go for E2, so you'd want to get E1, E2. If you're not planning to go for E2, I'd say just stop at the weapon, don't even get E1. But if you're going for E2, it's definitely gonna be worth it. It's gonna make her much, much more flexible, and it's gonna allow you to play her with a lot of other teammates, give her harmonies and stuff like that, and that's gonna buff her by a lot. So E2 is definitely gonna be a very, very good increase. Now, S1 E2 is generally a very, very good point to stop at. The rest of the constellations and the superimpositions don't really matter. It's gonna be like very slight increases. But if you want to go for it, then you should probably get the rest of the Eidolons, so like E3 to E6. And then after that, you can get the rest of the superimpositions, so like S2 to S5. If you're not going straight to E6, I just recommend to stop at E2, to be honest. The ones where I put like a red dot are gonna be the good stopping points. So you can either stop at just S1, stop at E2, or stop at E6. That means, for example, if you're not going for E6, then you should just stop at E2. There's no point in getting like E4, then stop it. So yeah, either get S1 or S1 E2 or S1 E6 or obviously S5 E6. This is, in my opinion, the best roadmap to wish for Acheron. But yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video. Peace.